How's your heart today? Some habits do not start as habits. They start as protection. A quick smile. A small, "I'm okay." A way of keeping the room calm and the day moving. And then, little by little, that answer becomes so practiced that even you stop checking whether it is true. Tonight's letters are about pretending to be okay until the performance becomes familiar, useful, and hard to stop. If you've ever answered too quickly or felt tired of being the steady one, maybe these words will feel like company. I think I learned how to be okay before I learned how to be honest. No one taught me that directly. I just grew up in a house where there always seemed to be a bigger fire somewhere else. My younger brother had the loud kind of needs. My mother was always balancing too much. My father came home tired in a way that changed the whole weather of the evening. Nobody was cruel. There was just a constant feeling that the room was already carrying enough. So I became the child who asked for less. If I was sad, I called it silly. If I was sick, I said it was probably nothing. If school felt heavy, I told myself I could handle it. People praised that. They called me mature, calm, easy. I wore those words like medals. I didn't understand then that children are not supposed to earn love by being emotionally convenient. One memory stays with me. I was 12 and crying in my room because something happened at school that I could not explain without sounding dramatic. I heard my mother in the kitchen sounding stretched thin. My father was looking for some missing bill. My brother was shouting about a shoe. I remember washing my face in the bathroom and practicing a normal expression before going downstairs. No one asked me to do that. I volunteered my own disappearance. My mother looked at me and said, "Everything okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." The whole room relaxed. That was the reward. Not comfort. Relief. I learned that if I made my feelings manageable enough, the day could keep moving. After that, it became a skill. By high school I could answer, "How are you?" without checking in with myself at all. I became the daughter who did not cause stress. The friend who listened more than shared. The student who looked steady even when I was quietly falling behind. I thought that meant I was strong. That is the trick. Pretending to be okay often gets dressed up as maturity. People admire your composure. They assume that because you are not asking for much, you must not need much. And if enough people believe that version of you, eventually you start believing it too. A few years ago, I went home to help my mother sort old boxes. We found school papers, photos, birthday cards, random cables. At one point she pulled out an old report from elementary school. The teacher had written, "Very independent, rarely asks for help." My mother smiled and said, "That sounds like you. You were always the easiest one." She meant it warmly. But for the first time, I heard the loneliness underneath the compliment. Not easiest because life felt easy to me. Easiest because my feelings had become the most negotiable thing in the room. That night my mother asked if I was okay, and again I said, "I'm fine." She paused and said, very softly, "You always say that fast." That sentence stayed with me. Fast. Like the speed itself had become part of the lie. Since then I've noticed how often I say I'm okay before I've figured out whether I am. Tired becomes fine. Lonely becomes busy. Overwhelmed becomes just a lot going on. I make everything sound temporary, small, and already handled. Mom, if I could send you this, I wouldn't send it to blame you. I know you were carrying so much, but I want to say this anyway. I was not born easy. I became easy because it helped the house breathe. I became skilled at minimizing myself because it seemed kinder than arriving with full-sized feelings. And I carried that skill so far into adulthood that sometimes I still confuse emotional invisibility with peace. I'm learning now that being low maintenance is not the same as being healed. Sometimes it is just pain that learned how to stand very still. Some habits begin as kindness toward others and end as distance from ourselves. The relationship didn't end because we stopped loving each other. It ended because I kept giving him a polished version of me and calling that honesty. He was gentle. He noticed things. If I came home too quiet, he would ask, "Long day?" If I was washing the same glass too long at the sink, he would lean against the counter and say, "Want to talk?" He didn't push hard. He just kept offering doors. At first, I told myself I was protecting us. I didn't want to bring work stress into dinner. I didn't want every bad mood to become an event. I didn't want to sound needy. So whenever something hurt, I edited it before it reached him. A bad meeting became just annoying. A rough week became, I'm tired. Fear became, I'm probably overthinking. Loneliness became nothing, really. It looked mature from the outside. I thought I was preventing mess. What I didn't understand was that I was also not handing him myself. One evening he was making pasta, and I came home after a terrible day at work. The kind where you smile through being dismissed and then carry the humiliation home in your shoulders. He looked up once and said, "Rough day?" For 1 second, I wanted to tell the truth. I wanted to say I was angry and small and exhausted from being agreeable all the time. Instead, I smiled and said, "I'm okay, just hungry." He nodded, stirred the pasta, and the moment closed. That was how it always happened. Not with one huge betrayal, just 1,000 small withdrawals. I was constantly smoothing out my own inner life before it could touch anyone else. I thought I was being loving, really I was preventing closeness. We still had routines. We still sent each other grocery lists and silly photos. From the outside, we looked fine too. But I was getting lonelier inside the relationship than I had ever felt alone. Not because he failed me, because he kept meeting a version of me that had already cleaned up the evidence. The conversation that changed everything happened while we were folding laundry. Warm towels, mismatched socks, one lamp on. He asked if I was excited about a trip we had been planning. I said, "Yeah, of course." Then he put a towel down and said, very carefully, "I don't know where you go when something hurts." I still remember the silence after that. Because he was right. He said he loved me, but it felt like I disappeared emotionally and came back smiling, asking what we should order for dinner. He said he wasn't asking for drama. He just didn't know how to be close to someone who only ever let him stand outside. I cried immediately, which almost made it worse. Because clearly there was so much there. I had just kept all of it hidden until it overflowed. He asked, "Why do you always say you're fine?" And the only answer I had was the plainest true one in the world: I don't know how not to. That was it. Pretending had gotten me through family stress, school stress, jobs I hated, grief I didn't know how to name. "I'm fine" was my fastest route out of discomfort, so fast that I never stopped to ask what it was costing me. We tried after that. I tried to pause before answering, to say, "Actually, I'm upset," or, "I don't know what I'm feeling yet, but it's more than nothing." He tried to stay patient, but something had already thinned out between us. Not love, trust and access. He was tired of guessing. I was frightened by how exposed honesty made me feel. And eventually we had to admit that love can't build much with someone who keeps disappearing behind composure. If I could send him this letter, I'd say, "You were not asking for too much. You were asking me to be present in my own life with you. And I kept giving you a cleaned up version, because I thought that was easier to love." I didn't realize that constant composure can become its own form of absence. The breakup was painful. But the loneliest part was realizing how long I had been leaving first, one "I'm fine" at a time. What looks calm on the surface is not always peace. Sometimes it is just pain with excellent manners. The first honest answer I gave in years happened in a parked car outside a diner. My friend Lena was in town for work, and we met late because adulthood pushes friendship into odd hours. We had fries, talked about harmless things, laughed about old roommates, and then sat in her car afterward, because neither of us wanted to end the night yet. She asked about work. I said, "Busy." She asked about my family. I said, "They're good." She asked how I was doing. And, like muscle memory, I said, "I'm fine." She smiled a little and said, "You always say that like you're trying to end the conversation before the truth gets there." I laughed, but my face got hot. Because she was right. I did say it like that. Quickly. Efficiently. Like my job was to keep the room moving. She asked again, quieter, "How are you, really?" And I felt something rise in my throat that was more confusing than dramatic. Because I genuinely didn't know how to answer. Not because nothing was wrong, because too many things were wrong in ways I had flattened into routine. I was tired all the time. I dreaded my phone. My apartment was neat mostly, because cleaning felt easier than resting. I was answering messages with cheerful punctuation I didn't feel. I was functioning well enough that no one would call it a crisis. And privately, I felt like I was living a few inches outside my own life. But none of that sounded important enough to confess, so I kept calling it fine. Lena just waited. She didn't rush to rescue me or fill the silence with advice. She left the question open. And eventually I said the smallest honest sentence I could manage. I think I'm more tired than I've been admitting. The moment I said it, I cried. No secret tragedy, no huge reveal. Just the release of finally saying one true thing, after so many automatic ones. I kept apologizing, and she handed me napkins from the glove compartment and said, "You don't have to wait until you're falling apart to be real." I have carried that sentence ever since, because I think that was exactly what I had been doing. Waiting to become undeniable. Waiting for the kind of breakdown that would justify needing comfort. As if ordinary exhaustion, quiet sadness, numbness, and loneliness were not enough reason to stop pretending. We sat there for almost an hour. I told her things I hadn't said out loud to anyone. Not because they were shocking, because they were soft. And somehow softness had become harder for me to reveal than disaster. When I got home that night, nothing in my life looked different. Same dishes, same blanket on the couch, same work alarm, but something inside me had shifted. I think that was the first time I understood that pretending to be okay doesn't only hide pain. It hides you. The next day my sister called and asked how I was. I almost said fine. I could feel the word line itself up automatically. But I paused, and then I said, "Honestly, I'm a little worn out." She said, "Oh," in a real way, and asked if I wanted to come over, because she had made too much soup. That moment meant more to me than it should have. Not because soup solves everything, because honesty did not create disaster. It created closeness. I still say, "I'm fine," more than I mean to. Habits that old do not disappear in one brave conversation. But I hear it now when I do it. I hear the speed. I hear the distance. And sometimes I try again. If I could send this letter backward, I'd send it to the version of me who became good at surviving by staying pleasant. I'd tell them that being easy to handle is not the same as being healed. That low maintenance can become a hiding place. That people who love you are not always asking for a dramatic confession. Sometimes they are only asking for one honest inch. Maybe that is how a habit begins to loosen. Not with a huge breakthrough. Just with a pause long enough for the truth to arrive before the performance does. For years, I thought being okay was something I had to prove. Now I think honesty is how I begin to become okay again. If tonight felt familiar, maybe that doesn't mean you're failing. Maybe it only means you got very good at getting through things. But getting through is not the same as being met, and it is not the same as rest. There is nothing weak about realizing that the version of you who always says, "I'm fine," might be tired too. Healing does not always begin with a dramatic unraveling. Sometimes it begins with one slower answer, one truthful sentence, one moment where you choose not to disappear. And sometimes that small honesty is enough to help you find your way back to yourself.